Police officer Amelia from a tiny village never imagined that a simple beach patrol would become a terrifying mystery. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. She shuddered as she stood in front of the antique ship that had washed up on the coast 90 years later. Her discovery within was so disturbing that she immediately radioed for help. It had occurred during one of her usual patrols. Since many people frequently strolled the beach at night, she had been monitoring it to look for any signs of the previous night's events, but she had never imagined that this mechanical beast would be on the beach. She was aware that she needed to request further help. Weather and time have worn down the facade. Pressing the transmission button, Amelia spoke into a radio. "Dispatch, this is Officer Amelia requesting backup at West Beach for an unidentified object near the old jetty. Over." Before a recognizable voice spoke, "Copy that, Amelia," the radio beeped. "I'm forwarding this to Officer Marcus. 5 minutes is the ETA. Be careful." The hull had a horrible appearance. One letter was visible on the worn nameplate AP Munley. The others, Neptune, had long since faded. For a ship named after the sea deity, it was a fitting moniker. In less than 5 minutes, Amelia heard the sound of a car getting closer and closer as the tires crunched on the gravel at the entrance to the beach. Marcus's well-known patrol SUV arrived. The door opened once it had parked, showing Marcus, who seemed apprehensive. His mouth dropped to the ground upon seeing the ship. He started acting right away. "All right, team, let's approach this systematically." The crew started their inquiry before they really knew what horrors this ship had in store for them. Marcus, Amelia, and Jane had the inquisitive group under control while Louise guarded the area, so they went to the Neptune. They had to wade through some shallow waters at first, but they soon came to the ship's gangway. It creaked beneath Amelia's weight as she attempted it first, but it stayed sturdy enough for the two to climb. Marcus began to speak once they had nearly reached the deck. "The ship on which my great-grandfather perished was never located. For that reason, my grandpa never got to know his father. I simply have to wonder when I see this, you know?" Amelia and Marcus could never have imagined what they would discover in the end at that point. Their feat of hauling themselves onto the ship's deck was a tribute to lost maritime treasures. Then Marcus saw something, as his palm came into contact with a tarnished plaque. Neptune's Trident, 1933, the ship's name and debut date were inscribed on the plaque. Aloud, he read, "She must have seen so much." Amelia motioned for Marcus to accompany her below while brandishing a flashlight. With each step, the metal staircase of the ship creaked. They discovered cramped hallways below that led to the crew quarters. After noticing fading photos, they quickly discovered photos taken by the crew members. They then noticed something flash in the corner as they continued to walk. Something rusty and ancient waited beyond it, ready to rock their world. Amelia was drawn to an old corroded locket that was lying on the ground. She attempted to carefully pry it open, being cautious not to damage the exquisite jewels. The astonishing image inside the locket was a black and white snapshot of a young mother cuddling a youngster who seemed no more than 3 years old. He had already seen it when she turned to show him. Even with the lighting on, his complexion seemed practically pasty white. It appeared as though he had seen a ghost. In a whisper, Marcus said, That's my great-grandmother," ending the stillness. This caused Amelia's eyes to widen. "That is undoubtedly enlightening. Then this had to be the ship that your great-grandfather worked on when it sailed from the harbor of our town 90 years ago. We might be able to determine what happened to them if we look into it more." As they continued down the eerie little hallway, Amelia's flashlight beam soon passed over a big, tarnished door bearing an odd symbol, a trident clutched by 2 hands. Amelia said, "This has to be the captain's cabin." They understood they would require specialized equipment to unlock the sealed door. However, it forced them to go on, as there was another door beside the captain's cabin that was only a little bit ajar. Marcus pressed his foot inside to reveal the treasures within. It was the quarters of the first mate. Marcus moved cautiously toward the picture that had captured his interest in the dimly lighted room. The man's formal features mirrored Marcus's own, giving him an uncanny familiarity. The photograph's clever protection scheme became apparent upon closer inspection. Strong and obviously old, the frame possessed a luster that indicated it was water-resistant. Amelia stated, "There's something more to this frame," with a voice full of resolve. Marcus took his time disassembling the backing of the frame. To his surprise, there were folded bits of parchment tucked up neatly below the picture. Amelia picked one of the letters and opened it carefully to start reading. "It's addressed to your great-grandfather," she murmured, anguish shining through. When both Marcus and the guys in the picture learned that the story had been passed down through the years, their bond grew. They focused on one sentence in particular. It spoke of impending storms and the gloom they brought. "So if anything happens to me during the storm, find the ship's log," Amelia said. Marcus and Amelia exchanged enlightening glances. Marcus remarked, "The captain's log would naturally be with him." Amelia gave a nod of assent, the potential lighting up her face. Old locks and strong metal barred the entryway, sealing it tight. The sound of footsteps announced Jane's return with more help. With a variety of equipment in tow, including crowbars and metal cutters, they were prepared to take on the locked door. When the team started working on the door, they were surprised by how resilient it was. Its reinforced nature was demonstrated by the resistance encountered in every attempt to cut or pry it open. But even the most formidable obstacles may be conquered with perseverance, talent, and collaboration. Muttering, the door gave way with one more agonizing shove before trembling and groaning. Past the door, more skeleton remains could be seen in the tiny hallways, each depicting a distinct moment of death. Marcus experienced a chill down his spine as the tragedy's weight made each step more difficult. Amelia and Marcus felt the past of the ship pulse around them with every bone fragment they passed. Marcus's flashlight beam noticed something strange in the midst of the awful scene, a metallic safe with elaborate inscriptions that suggested significance. The ship's log, with its worn but undamaged leather cover, was nestled within. With great care, Marcus raised it. The reward for their journey was now in his hands. He exhaled, "We found it," his eyes shining with astonishment and accomplishment. They discovered a variety of relics, jewels, coins, and elaborate items as they dug deeper into the safe. Each item had a story to tell. "These were thought to be lost," said Jane, gesturing to a pendant with a beautiful design. Amelia went on, "They are more than just treasures." A cache of sealed letters was discovered beneath the relics. Their presence offered insight into a more personal aspect of the ship's past. Marcus, Amelia, and Jane were taken back to the last moments of the ship as they read the letters. Every word was infused with feeling, creating a striking portrait of hope, despair, and love. The letter that said, "We cannot escape the storm," was received. "But know my love for you is eternal." The crew's true feelings came to light, telling a story of unwavering love and acceptance of fate in addition to tragedy. The villagers were deeply touched by the tale of Neptune's trident. Marcus shared their findings and related the stories of love, hopelessness, and resiliency in a town hall meeting. "We are obligated," he declared. "We need to remember and honor their story." Sensing the weight of their shared obligation, Amelia nodded in accord. Ideas for immortalizing the ship and her crew were circulating around the community. A committed group was established in a matter of weeks to supervise the establishment of a marine museum. A symbolic connection to the sea was ensured by allocating land close to the shore. Amelia pondered, "It'll be a beacon, pointing to the trident's past." Marcus added, "and making sure it survives." The committee's workstation was littered with models, drawings, and blueprints that represented the idea that was beginning to take shape. The museum was not intended to be a place where items were put on exhibit. The visitors would be guided through the ship's magnificence, several journeys, and untimely demise in an interactive experience. The letters are the focal point because they are arranged such that they can be read in soft light, which enables viewers to empathize profoundly with the unfiltered feelings they represent. Jane said, "It's like diving deep into the ship's soul and understanding its heartbeat." A crowd unlike any other was present during the grand opening. Individuals from nearby towns flocked in, excited to contribute to the tribute. Jane, Marcus, and Amelia stood tall as they saw guests go through the displays with expressions of reverence, grief, and amazement on their faces. Amelia murmured, "This is their tribute," addressing the team. Dedication to commemorating and honoring the Neptune's trident was demonstrated by the museum. The museum developed into a landmark over time. People gathered from all around to celebrate, lament, and learn about the ship's history. Its corridors were explored by historians, school groups, and inquisitive visitors, all of whom left with a personal piece of the Neptune's trident tale engraved in their memories. With its legends of mystery, bravery, and love, the ship's memory endured as a poignant and uplifting reminder of a bygone era. An overwhelming wave of emotion swept over her as she stood there. It had not been easy to track this cat and solve the enigma of its strange behavior. She was on the verge of losing her mind since she now knew the truth. Nothing in all of C's years of taking care of stray cats had prepared her for this. She was shocked, but she also knew that she had to face this strange circumstance. C never would have guessed that this crazy journey would come from her love of animals. She was raised in Seoul, South Korea, and had grown up with cats since she was a small child. She moved to a portion of the city 5 years ago where a lot of apartment complexes were near to one another. It was the ideal place for stray cats to gather because of all the back lanes and terraces. Samantha got to know them rather well quite fast. Not long after moving there, Samantha began feeding the stray cats. Since the cats would no longer be able to look at their trash or go near their windows, the other neighbors didn't object. The neighborhood's felines quickly got to know her, and she quickly got to know them. However, cats are elusive, and she was unaware of all their mysteries. Samantha was instantly drawn to one particular cat because it was so fascinating. One female tabby cat in particular caught Samantha's attention since she began acting strangely in comparison to the other cats. She would come close and smell around when Samantha came by carrying bowls of food, but she never took any. Samantha assumed she could have simply eaten, but the next day she repeated the same behavior. Samantha became aware that she had previously seen that cat. It was not unusual for stray cats to vanish and then reappear. This cat's behavior was peculiar. Samantha recalled that not so long ago in one of the building's basements, the tabby, whom she had named Dongguk, had given birth. She was told by a neighbor that while she had 5 kittens, none of them survived. That made Samantha sad, and she reasoned that perhaps the cat was still grieving for her babies. Is it possible that Dongguk's heartbreak prevented her from wanting to eat? Samantha made the decision to lift the tabby's spirits. She purchased wet cat food, which she only displayed on unique occasions. Dongguk couldn't possibly turn down such a delicious treat. She set the can on the ground in front of her after opening it. The cat did not touch the can. Instead, she meowed while glancing up at Samantha and staring at the food. Then she took an unexpected action. She saw the tabby examining a bag of dry cat food that she intended to give to the other strays while she stood there observing Dongguk. Still perplexed by the tabby's unwillingness to eat, she bent down to give her a pet. The cat then attempted to knock Samantha's purse out of her grasp by extending her paw. Samantha dropped the bag to the ground. Samantha scratched her head, bewildered, as Dongguk snatched it with her fangs and rushed off. Samantha continued to be shocked by Dongguk's actions. She'd been feeding strays for 5 years, and she'd never seen one act like that. She returned the following day, this time carrying another bag of food, in case Dongguk tried to grab it from her once more. The cat grabbed the bag and bolted, just like it did the day before. Samantha was determined to figure out why, even if she still didn't know. To find out where Dongguk stole the food, C made the decision to follow her. As usual, she came outside carrying a plastic bag filled with cat food. She set the bag on the ground and waited for the tabby to come. Samantha grabbed her camera and followed as soon as the cat accepted it. It would not be easy to keep up with her, she knew, as Dongguk led her into little alleys. When the cat sprang up on a ledge onto a terrace, Samantha nearly lost sight of her, but she managed to climb the steps and discovered Dongguk, who had ceased climbing and was now pacing the terrace with the plastic bag still in her mouth. She appeared to be waiting for something at times. Then Samantha noticed it. A little tabby kitten was scaling the cliff. It approached Donguk, who put the food bag at its feet right away. Samantha concluded that the kitten had done this previously because it was so easy to rip the bag apart with its teeth. Donguk stared intently as it proceeded to consume the food within. This indicated, C thought, that obviously some of Dongguk's litter had survived. The mother of this single kitten was trying all in her power to keep it alive. This knowledge reduced Samantha to tears, and she knew she had to do something to assist. Even though Dongguk was shrewd and savvy, Samantha wanted to make sure her efforts wouldn't go to waste, so she got in touch with a nearby animal rescue organization. Her goal was to improve the lives of the tabby and her youngster. After seeing Samantha's film, the animal group's staff was astounded by Dongguk's acts. One of them remarked, "After suffering, she was attached to the kitten." They dispatched rescuers to locate and apprehend the cats in Samantha's area. Considering that they were unfamiliar with Dongguk, the work was not simple. The tabby, a longtime wanderer, would not surrender without a struggle. Because the kitten was smaller and more obedient, the rescuers managed to catch it first. To reassure Dongguk that they intended no harm, they picked it up with great care. The mother was cautious at first, but finally let them to take her. She realized it was the only way she could get back to her pet. As Samantha watched them go, she experienced mixed emotions of delight and despair, since she knew what they were going to get. Dongguk and her kitten were reunited with their new home, which was arranged by the rescue organization for their comfort. The kitten bounced about its mother in a playful manner, delighted with its new warm covers. Dongguk was stoic during feeding time, but at last she took a dish of food. She gave off the impression that she realized her days of fretting about providing food for her child were over. Finally, after a torturous 36 hours of labor, the worn-out new mother was cradling her adorable newborn girls in her arms. But something about the doctor's apology had unsettled her. The doctor let out a spine-tingling scream that was undoubtedly audible from at least 5 rooms over. The doctor realized he needed assistance because, although he had anticipated a challenging twin birth, he was never prepared for this. Jessica and Matthew became agitated. The doctor started shouting for aid, which surprised them. The doctor finally came back into the room, perspiration running down his brow, but he was getting the assistance he needed. All they had to do now was go to work. Jessica and Matthew were completely taken aback when they initially learned they were expecting. Jessica found out she was pregnant with twins after rushing to the hospital for an ultrasound. Originally, they had not intended to have only one child, but now they were expecting 2. Even though Jessica and Matthew didn't have a romantic connection yet, they were good friends from their time at university. It never occurred to any of them that there would be anything more than friendship. They began sharing beds after a night out, but one morning, Jessica woke up feeling quite queasy. She made the hasty decision to run to the pharmacy and get many pregnancy tests as she began to panic. She was taken aback after taking the first exam. She was found to be pregnant by the test. She had to talk to Matthew right now. Actually, he was quite encouraging. He completely understood when she told him she couldn't bring herself to undergo an abortion. He expressed his desire to support her and the child. The couple soon found out that they were expecting not 1 but 2 children. This implied that Matthew would need to be much more involved because the pregnancy was now much more complicated. Matthew invited her to move in with him after some discussion. He worked from home most of the time and had a respectable-sized workspace. Matthew understood deep down that he wasn't in love with Jessica. Aside from that, he had just discussed his readiness for a relationship with a buddy. He made the choice to lay aside his emotions and address the matter with an open mind. Maybe a few months of cohabitation and becoming pregnant might make him reconsider. In every manner he could, Matthew was providing Jessica with excellent care. Every day he prepared dinner for her and made sure she slept well. Matthew felt his distance from Jessica growing every day while she was beginning to fall more and more in love with him. They carried on in this manner until approximately 1 month prior to Jessica's due date. Her large tummy, swollen with twins, made it difficult for her to move. Her health really began to deteriorate at that point, and she was forced to stay in the hospital for the remainder of the time until her due date. While Matthew made every effort to be in the hospital, He also enjoyed having the house to himself once more. He felt a shudder go down his spine, picturing what it would be like to have Jessica and the 2 infants with him at all times. After the birth, how was he going to convince her that he really thought she should return to live with her parents? Matthew realized he couldn't tell her this straight away because of the state she was in at the moment. It was probably time for him to do it sooner. Jessica remained quite weak, but her condition recovered after a few days in the hospital. There was reason for gratitude over her situation at the moment. As Jessica's circumstances improved, Matthew was relieved of some of his tension, but he was still quite concerned. As he made his way to the hospital, several ideas were racing through his head. Nurses were running past him into Jessica's room, he noticed as he approached her door. She let out an excruciating scream, and just as he was starting to wonder what may be wrong, he heard it. He hurried into the room and crouched by Jessica, who was in agony, while he confirmed what was occurring. Her expression brightened as soon as she saw him, but it just made him feel worse. Rather than feeling happy about it, he was disappointed as he was unable to give her the news he had come to the hospital to deliver. Soon after, the first baby was born. But before she could unwind or enjoy her little son, the second twin still needed to come out. Almost everyone in the room looked away when one of the physicians examined the first twin more closely, and his eyes widened. The doctor muttered something to the doctor in charge of the birth, grabbing everyone else's attention with his actions. Then he hurried the baby and himself out of the room. Matthew and Jessica started to worry a lot, but they were unable to worry too much since they had the unborn child to consider. The doctor had left the room earlier and was now busy testing the first twin as Jessica struggled to deliver the second. Part of him was certain that his suspicions regarding the kid would prove to be correct when he carried out the test. Finally, after a time of labor, the second baby was born. A little sense of relief washed over Matthew and Jessica from their mounting tension at this development. They were afraid of the doctor's opinion of the first infant the instant they recalled him. The physician came back inside and started mumbling while lowering his head. He told them there was nothing seriously wrong with the baby's health to start. The physician clarified that while he wasn't worried about the infant's health, he had seen something else. He peered into the baby's eyes and became concerned. The couple's first concern was that their child was blind or had a comparable condition. The doctor swiftly put the concept out of their thoughts by explaining that it had to do with the color of the baby's eyes. He said the kid looked adorable with his gorgeous brown eyes, but there was a problem. Matthew and Jessica both had blue eyes, making it nearly impossible for the newborn to have brown eyes. The physician went on to explain as they continued to consider what the doctor had stated. He indicated that a few rapid DNA tests would be the best way to solve the riddle of the baby's brown eyes. It was discovered that Matthew was not the baby's father after comparing the baby's DNA to Matthew's. Matthew was completely taken aback by the results of the DNA test. Jessica seemed surprised, but not as surprised as one might have thought. Since she had always understood that what had transpired was conceivable, she wasn't very startled. Now that the truth was in the open, all she could do was reveal the remaining undiscovered events. Jessica said that she had been seeing someone else while she and Matthew were sharing a bed. Jessica said that after learning she was pregnant, she had cut the other person out of her life. Matthew admitted to Jessica that he didn't want to be with her after giving the incident a lot of thought. However, he also said that even if the twins weren't his, he would still like to be there for her and them. Jessica was appreciative of Matthew's generosity toward her. As she acclimated to motherhood, she was closely following a court case to force the twins' father to provide them maintenance. She couldn't help but be grateful for the twins' good health, though, as it was what mattered most to her. Eva, then 4 years old, clutched to her dog Max tightly in the final silent minutes before saying an agonizing farewell. She wouldn't let go of him. The veterinarian's sudden stop in response to her steadfast care for Max came when he saw his reaction and said, "Something is wrong." Little Eva had not observed anything about her parents' unusual conversation with the doctor, and she was continuing giving Max hugs. He was genuinely Eva's dearest buddy and such a wonderful dog. Unfortunately, he had severe health problems that would only worsen and cause him great suffering, so they had to put him to sleep. The physicians had informed them of this. It was their appointment today, and they believed that it was the appropriate time to say farewell. They talked about all the wonderful memories they had of Max, and when they realized that this was indeed their last farewell, tears welled up in their eyes. But the quiet time was cut short as Dr. Wilson barged into the room without warning. When they witnessed what the veterinarian performed next, they were totally caught off guard. In the end, Dr. Wilson took a completely different course of action. The family of three was left absolutely perplexed in the examination room as he quickly left the room after picking up Max and carrying the dog in his arms. "Mom, what took place?" Little Eva tugged at her mother's sleeve and said, "Where is Max?" She simply watched the door, waiting for either Jared or the veterinarian to re-enter the space. Monica decided she could not wait any longer, so she quickly gathered Eva and left the room, looking around for Max or Dr. Wilson. Monica hurried to the reception and gave a brief explanation of the circumstances, requesting the woman to watch over Eva while she searched. Monica moved along the halls of the clinic, discovering new doors at each turn. These doors were labeled with numbers or signs that indicated their various uses. Monica saw the range of emotions on the faces of other pet owners sitting in the waiting rooms as she made her way around the clinic: hope, concern, and despair. Armed with this new knowledge, Monica navigated the clinic with fresh energy as she asked yet another employee about Dr. Wilson. Monica was thinking about making another lap around the clinic when she noticed Dr. Wilson running out of a window and into a room marked "Restricted Access." Her heart gave a quick jump. Monica chose to wait in the corridor there because there was nowhere to go straight away. She took a seat against the other wall and drew Eva onto her lap. She envisioned a dozen alternatives as the minutes passed, each one more terrifying or optimistic than the previous. Jared burst into the waiting room at that very moment. Monica and Jared looked at each other optimistically, their momentum rekindled by the thought that they could finally get some answers. With a determined gait, Monica and Jared approached the clinic's administrative desk with Eva in behind. They had found Dr. Wilson, who was wrapping up a case. He was going to see them soon. Dr. Wilson knocked gently and walked in, his calm, comforting manner immediately apparent. He nodded cordially to Eva and smiled warmly at Monica and Jared. He informed Monica and Jared that Max's ailment, which was previously believed to be terminal, was in fact an uncommon but curable sickness. Jared and Monica listened carefully, their nervousness gradually giving way to cautious hope. They were really appreciative of Dr. Wilson. The good prognosis made their talk about Max's treatment plan more optimistic. The possibility of healing and resilience, together with being prepared to face the future as a unit, had previously cast a shadow over the family's path. After Max followed the treatment regimen prescribed by Dr. Wilson, he started to improve. Jared and Monica alternated in giving him his medicine and making sure he adhered to a rigid diet. Eva, who was never far from Max, gave him unfailing support and compassion. Max was eventually able to return to his loving and fun personality thanks to their combined efforts and his tenacity, which is a testimonial to the effectiveness of family support and medical attention. Wendy went to the coffee shop and left a crucial envelope. Her life was transformed by a stranger's generosity. She no longer cared about Wendy's disheveled hair or the coffee stains on her blouse. She was moving busily along the sidewalk when she staggered and had to compose herself many times. Her body refused to give up the struggle, even if her thoughts had become numb and her eyes were empty of hope. Thinking to herself, "I need to get some coffee," Wendy hurried inside the coffee shop next to the hospital. She sat at an empty table and ordered her Americano. She placed a large envelope on the table next to her coffee and her purse beneath her seat. Wendy sipped on some coffee and pulled up her phone's calculator app. She was occupied with figuring out how much extra she would have to pay the hospital. She buried her face in the table and wept softly when she saw the response on her phone. Wendy's cell phone rang. Alice was the closest friend she had. She dried her eyes hastily and picked up the phone. Wendy said gently, "Yes, Alice, I got the money from the bank. Yes, everything, roughly $5,000 in all. I'm currently on my way to the hospital. I was simply in for a coffee. My sleep was disturbed last night. In any case, I'll make the initial payment today. Would you like something to eat, ma'am? A youthful server cut him off. At the same time that she was shocked, perplexed, and enraged, Wendy gently shook her head and replied, "No, I'm good, thank you." After acknowledging Wendy, the 23-year-old server Jonathan recognized that his joy was out of place. He went immediately to the other table to take care of it. "All right, Alice. No, the waiter was the only one. Where were we then?" Wendy and Alice carried on their talk. Jonathan had some guilt. He made the decision to offer Wendy a free muffin. He spotted a new client in a beige suit waiting to place an order at the table in front of Wendy's. Wendy was weeping as he drew nearer to her table. "Alice, I wish I had spent more time with Samantha." After hearing Wendy talking on the phone, Jonathan made the decision to decline Wendy's muffin offer. "I don't know how I'm going to pay off the hospital bills," Jonathan said. He ignored her, going right to work on the man in the beige suit. "They claim that Sam's health is deteriorating. To continue the therapy, I must pay the remaining balance before the end of next week. I took out all of the money I had in the bank. I have no idea what to do." Wendy was crying more and more aloud. It was impossible to avoid overhearing Wendy's phone talk from Jonathan and those seated around her table. "I believe I must sell the house. Alice, hold on. The hospital is calling." Wendy took the other call. She was informed by the hospital that Samantha had experienced another seizure episode. She hurried out of the cafe after getting up from her table right away. Everyone was shocked to see Wendy go, including the coffee shop manager. Jonathan saw that Wendy had placed an envelope on the table and her luggage beneath her seat. After gathering them up, he hurried out to find Wendy, but she had already gotten ahead and was unable to hear Jonathan shouting for her. Jonathan saw that the envelope had a little tear in it. He headed back to the storage area of the coffee shop. Among the decorations from the birthday celebration held at the coffee shop the day before, he discovered a roll of tape. The fact that the envelope was filled with $100 notes dawned on him as he was taping it shut. He brought the envelope to his boss right away, who was chatting with the client Jonathan had been serving only a moment earlier. When Jonathan saw the man in the beige suit, he became bewildered. He pondered, "Is he complaining about me?" "Sir, I believe this is the amount of money the hospital was owing by the woman who ran off. How ought we to proceed?" Jonathan told his management. "You ought to return it and get straight to the hospital. But first, I believe we ought to lend the woman a little assistance. How do you feel?" After returning to his office, the manager came back with some cash. In the envelope, he placed it. Concurrently, Jonathan conferred with his associates, procured additional funds, and appended them to the total. He also observed the man jotting down a note in his beige suit. Is he seriously submitting a written complaint against me now? Jonathan was confused by the customer's lack of tact. The manager motioned for Jonathan to go to the hospital while handing him the bag and the envelope. The man in the beige suit cried, "Stop!" By now, Jonathan was very pissed up. The guy said to Jonathan, "How much money is in there now?" "I don't think that's relevant, sir," Jonathan answered, attempting to remain composed. "Now, just let me leave. This money is needed by the lady." "Just tell me," the guy said. The manager stepped up and estimated the number at about $8,000. After acknowledging, the man took out his checkbook. After writing a $10,000 check, he asked Jonathan if he could remember the woman's name. From the bag, Jonathan took out an old identity card with Wendy's name on it. The man gave Jonathan the check, which he had written in her name. Along with giving Jonathan the message, he instructed him to place it inside the envelope. Grinning, Jonathan readied himself for a quick run in the direction of the hospital. However, he watched a bewildered Wendy walk into the coffee shop as he turned. "Pardon me, but did you see an envelope and a bag? Just a few minutes before, I had placed it on that table. Would you please give it to me? It's critical," Wendy begged the manager. Jonathan sprinted over to Wendy and gave her the mail and the bag. The envelope was heavier than previously, but Wendy was unaware of this. She just accepted it, gave everyone her thanks, and hurried back to the hospital. She hurried to the hospital and began taking items out of her suitcase. It occurred to her that the envelope appeared hefty. When she opened it, she saw money inside that wasn't what she had taken out of the bank. She was even more taken aback when she noticed a $10,000 check written in her name. She unfolded the message enclosed with the check. It said, "Samantha will be all right, so don't worry." To be clear, this isn't a charitable endeavor. The cosmos is just at work here. Our shared interest is in this. You are the one who needs this gift that you are getting today. All I ask is that you lend a helping hand to others when you can. Just spread this goodwill boomerang to others. Wendy felt so very grateful. The generosity of those in her immediate vicinity astounded her. She now have the funds to pay for Samantha's whole medical care. She made a commitment to assist others and give back whenever she could. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.